And welcome to another edition of Life Outdoors. I am your host, Chris Reckling. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. If this is your first time catching Life Outdoors, it is a new show here on Wavy Plus. It's all about man's interaction with the nature and everything that we have in our neighborhood, our little cul-de-sac by the sea that has to do with the great outdoors. We could talk about just about anything from outdoor sports to fishing and hunting to gardening. We can talk about birds, we can talk about animals, we can talk about reptiles, but today we're going to talk about insects. Not just any insects, but one particular insect which is so critical to the way we live our lives, and that is the honeybee. Our guest today is Christine Smith, who is a master beekeeper and president of the Tidewater Beekeepers Association. Christine, welcome back. It's good to see you. I haven't seen you in a while. How are you doing?
I'm not doing too bad, Chris. I'm really happy to be back here to talk about honeybees and just how important they are to all of us in the environment.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about a critically important insect to everyone. But before we talk about that, let's tell us a little about yourself. When did you get hooked on bees, and where have you taken it? Because you are an expert in these things.
So what's really cool is I was lucky enough to start my career studying science. I was a biologist. I worked for pharmaceutical companies. And then I ended up moving to Virginia with my husband for his work. And that's when I started getting into bees. I was like, I want to have a mini farm. I want to do all of these things outdoors. And I found our local bee club that I'm now currently the president of, Tidewater Beekeepers Association, and that was it. I was just hooked immediately. My passion for bees went into joining the Master Beekeeper program and just going on from there. And now I spend a lot of my time educating people about bees and also educating beekeepers. It's just such an amazing insect that you never stop learning and you never stop wanting to share how awesome they are with everybody else.
Let's talk more about the amazing honeybee. I've got some great footage that we shot out at your place a couple years ago. Mm-hmm. There are thousands of bees worldwide, but we're talking about the honeybee today.
Yes.
Why is the honeybee so special?
So besides the fact that they make honey, which I'm sure is everybody's favorite association with the honeybee, honeybees are vitally important to our food system. So honeybees are responsible for pollinating over 1/3 of all of the food you eat. So fruits, nuts, vegetables, most of those are pollinated by honeybees. And in commercial agriculture, this is particularly important because we farm on such large scale. Honeybees are the only bee species that can pollinate crops at that rate. So we really need honeybees because they have such large colonies and because they're extremely efficient pollinators.
You know what? When I spent some time with you and the little that I know about bees, what I'm amazed, what you're doing there is you're marking the queen bee.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We mark our queens to make it easier to find in the hive because it's one bee out of 80,000 other occupants. Worker bees make up most of the hive. You have a couple bees that are called drones. Those are the male bees. But most of the hive is female. So all of the worker bees and the queen bee are all female. And finding her among 80,000 bees can be a little bit challenging. So we like to mark them with a non-toxic paint pen. And actually the color we mark them corresponds with the year they were born. So there are 5 international queen marking colors. And we mark our queens based on that year.
So with that being said, what is the average lifespan of a queen bee, a worker bee, a drone?
So typically a queen bee can live up to 5 years. On average, about 2 or 3. A worker bee, however, in the springtime only lives for about 45 days. And a drone will live until they mate or are thrown out of the hive. So it's kind of funny that drones just kind of hang out and they go out, they fly out. If they get to mate with a queen, they die on mating. If they don't, they keep coming back to the hive until the fall comes and the girls say, hey, we're tired of feeding you. We're going to kick you out for the winter.
Should I be concerned about that? Males or drones that just do nothing but hang out and mate and then
luckily,
die?
You're not a honeybee, Chris,
Okay,
so I don't think you have to worry about that.
That is really odd. Okay,
Yeah.
So listen, I did read an article in the Guardian that said this past year was critically important to the life of the honeybee. They've 60% of the agricultural honeybee population was wiped out. Is that correct? And why and how?
That is, and that's the real question. We're really trying to figure out what happened here. This past year was actually one of the greatest honeybee losses in American history. Commercial beekeepers lost up to 100% of their colonies. Mostly it was 70%, and the laboratories, the Maryland Bee Lab, Cornell, the Bee Lab at Texas A&M, they're all working together to try and figure out why we had such a catastrophic loss this past year. I'm going to say that it's probably going to show a combination of factors from Varroa destructor, which is a mite that infects the bees, all the way to poor nutrition because we don't have enough diversity and enough flowers to really give our bees what they need.
And I guess you could always say management, how they're
Yep.
environmental factors.
Management, environment. I mean, when you think about commercial beekeeping on the scale that it's at, because we're trucking all of these bees across the country, because we're moving them, we're creating a lot of stress. So we're stressing out our bees, and then we're putting them in environments where they can't get the nutrition they need. It's all monocrop farming. We've got pesticides, herbicides, all of these different things are being used. And when you combine those factors, it really puts a lot of stress on the honeybee colony.
So that's why it's important now more than ever to do what you can to help the bee population. We'll talk more about in the next couple segments. But right now, what is the joy of being a beekeeper for you? Because I know you're fascinated with this insect.
I love beekeeping.
I mean, they give back more than you can put into it, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I say I have the greatest job you could ever have. I mean, who wouldn't love driving around the countryside on a sunny day, being able to get in, inspect bees, you get the smell of honey, that hum of the bees is very calming, you're out in nature, you're out in the sun, and you just really get to enjoy being out in the environment. Bees teach you so much about what's going on around you, and just getting in there and watching them and seeing how they perform as a society is amazing.
And they have their own little dance.
They do. They come in, they waggle, they say, hey, we found some food 2.5 miles to the left.
Let's go get it.
You know, let's go find that. And they bring it back. And the really cool thing, bees are a bioindicator species. And what that means is what's going on in your colony tells you what's going on in your world. So you have a drought, the bees will tell you. You have excessive amount of rain, the bees let you know. You have pesticides in the environment, you know, because of how your colony is performing. So you can tell a lot about the environment just by watching honeybees and what their colony is doing and how well they're performing.
All right, and now is a critical time for bees in our area. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll talk about the swarm season and what you can do to help the amazing bees. Stick around. Life Outdoors is coming right back. And welcome back to Life Outdoors. I'm your host, Chris Reckling, and today's topic is we're talking all things honeybees with Christine Smith, master beekeeper and current president of the Tidewater Beekeepers Association here in Hampton Roads. In the first segment, Christine, you talked about the amazing bee and the plight that I feel like we've been hearing
So many years.
We've been hearing for years that the bee has been under assault and we've been losing. Are we making any ground, or this past year was it catastrophic? Or I mean, put it into perspective, please.
I mean, this past year was definitely a huge loss in the beekeeping community, but we have made strides. There's been tons of research. We've really had a lot of media attention. The public has gotten involved. We're seeing a lot more people making more conscious choices. So, using less pesticides, planting more flowers, going to a clover lawn, leaving the dandelions alone in spring. We're starting to see a lot more of that happening. And I'm so excited every time I drive through the neighborhoods and I see more people engaging in planting more flowers and planting more forage and trying to help the bees. And I always get questions, how can I help? And I say, well, not everybody needs to be a beekeeper, right? But what everybody does need to do is be conscious of their environment. Understand that you don't need to use so many chemicals to keep your yard beautiful. You can plant different companion flowers that help with that. Planting more forage, more trees. Just all of these things are a huge help to the honeybee and all the pollinators that we have out there. There's over 200,000 different animal pollinators, and over 20,000 of those are bee species. So we've got our honeybee, but we also have so many species of native pollinators, and everything you can do from planting those flowers to using less chemicals helps all of those animals.
Let's be a little bit more specific and talk about what's happening right now. So obviously in the wintertime, it's everything is kind of dormant. You start coming out of wintertime, and that's when everything starts to happen. The bees probably start before everybody.
Oh,
They're
absolutely.
looking for new places. They're looking for new colonies, and then we get into swarm season.
Yes. And
What is that all
swarm
about?
season. So swarming is the natural process of colony reproduction. Honeybees reproduce on two different levels. So you have inside the colony, you have baby worker bees, you have all these different larvae and pupa being produced. But then you have colony reproduction. And that's when the old queen decides to take, say, about 50% to 80% of the colony, and they move out. So they fly up into a tree, this is what swarming is, and they go looking for a new home. Now, that new home could be a hollow tree. It could also be the soffit of your neighbor's garage. So during swarm season, Tidewater Beekeepers has a hotline for swarms. If you see a honeybee swarm anywhere, hanging off a bush, hanging off a tree, we will come get those bees for you because we don't want them to end up in your neighbor's house. We want to relocate them, be able to manage them, and give them a safe home and an environment where they can thrive.
You know, collecting bees in a tree is much different than collecting them under your deck or in your
Yes.
soffit. It's different. So if you see one that's easily accessible, they'll be more than happy to come out and get it from you. If it's in your house,
We do
different
have
story.
a few people that specialize in cutting bees out of houses.
Oh man,
So there are a few companies like Acme. They are also beekeepers. They'll come and they will do an assessment. They'll take care of it for you. But then you got to get the contractors to come in and put all that back together. So
Right.
having a cutout done is a lot more than just collecting a swarm.
Yeah.
So if you see that swarm, you want us to come and get it before it becomes a bigger problem.
I bet you get really excited when.
I'm so excited when I get a swarm call.
I know, right?
You know?
Because now you can reproduce. You have empty boxes. You
Yep.
have empty homes ready for a new swarm. How many hives do you have right now?
Right now, I'm running at 103.
But you would like to
So-
have.
150 to 200 is about my max.
Yeah.
Beekeeping is a very labor-intense hobby. So you really want to make sure that when you're doing this, especially if you're doing it on a sideliner or commercial scale, that you have the bodies to do that labor.
Yeah.
You know.
All right. So we just showed you some footage of a collection. I want you to walk us through what we're seeing. Okay.
Okay.
So
So
there's a swarm on top of a tree.
This is a swarm on top of a tree, and I'm going to tell you that nobody should ever do this.
Right.
And I know that we say to lead by example. I did get the swarm out of this tree, but I would never ask anyone to put a ladder up that high. So most of the time I like to collect them from the ground. You can see me here using a pole. It has a frame of brood on it, and brood is baby bees. And so by putting that brood up in the swarm, they just kind of crawl right onto it like a river. And I found that's the most effective way to get them out of high places is to go up there with a pole.
Get the brood. Get the
Yes,
brood
get the
first.
brood, exactly.
So that's pretty exciting. How often are you guys get swarm calls this time of year?
So-
This is early in the spring.
It's early in the season. We've already had about 35 swarm calls this year. We expect to double or triple that before June. So typically swarm season is around March to the end of June, and we can get anywhere from 50 to 100 calls a year.
Okay, and if you see a swarm, definitely look up Tidewater Beekeepers Association.
Yes.
and the numbers on the website. I have it right here. I mean,
Yeah,
I've got a couple numbers.
We've got our brand new swarm call number on the
Right.
website.
Yeah.
We had to change it a couple years ago,
Yeah.
but now that one will stay permanent. So if you have the number from a few years ago, it has changed. Go to the website. But we dispatch to all of our local beekeepers that are club members to be able to go get all of those swarms.
Get those swarms. Okay. So right now we've discussed the state of the bee right now. It's always under fire, it seems. We've talked about swarm season, and we've also touched on what you can do to help with the bees population in our area. And we're going to talk more about Tidewater Beekeepers Association and what you can do to help in that in the next segment. So stick around for more. You're watching Life Outdoors here on Wavy Plus. And welcome back to Life Outdoors. I am your host, Chris Reckling, sitting alongside Christine Smith, who is a master beekeeper and president of the Tidewater Beekeepers Association here in Hampton Roads. And we've been chatting all things bees, and we're going to tell you what you can do to help bees and butterflies and all the other pollinators out there who are not just amazing to watch and see in action, but critically important to our environment in so many different ways. And it's really simple what you can do. But before we talk about that, what else do you want to tell me about? I mean, you collect honey. I mean, what is the benefits of honey? I mean, come on.
So honey, which we've got some right here, I brought a little into the studio today, is an amazing product because, honey actually never goes bad. It is the perfect food because you can store it for up to 3,000 years, still open a jar, and it's as good as the day that you extracted it. The reason why is honey is slightly acidic, which makes it antibacterial. And because it creates an environment that bacteria can't grow in, that's why honey can last forever. It's really fascinating that also honey will absorb water. So if you get bacteria into honey, it can't thrive because it takes all of the water away from the bacteria. So honey is amazing. It's also great for healing wounds. So if you have a cut or a scrape, put a little honey on it. It sucks out some of the liquid from the wound, and it also adds that antibacterial to it and helps with healing. Manuka honey in particular is used for like staph infections or antibiotic resistant skin infections, and it's just such an amazing product, really.
You know your honey.
I do know my
You
honey.
produce your honey. If I just walk into a grocery store and I buy honey off the shelf,
So a lot of times, unfortunately, honey is not always honey. So 70% of all of the honey produced worldwide is actually adulterated or corn syrup. People will feed their bees or they'll pass off corn syrup from other countries, especially as honey. And we really have a hard time distinguishing the difference. But what I can tell you is that all real raw honey will crystallize. So if your honey starts to solidify, you can pretty much bet that it's probably raw honey because those other sugars don't crystallize.
also bee pollen.
Bee pollen is a really cool product. We have some right here. What we do is the bees will go out and they'll collect pollen and they squish it down into a little tiny ball on their pollen basket or the corbicula on their hind leg. And it's amazing. They carry these loads of pollen back to the hive to use for feeding the brood. What we do as beekeepers to collect that is we have this device called a pollen trap. And we only trap pollen for up to 2 days because the bees, of course, need nutrition, so we don't want to take too much from them. But bee pollen is great if you have really severe allergies. It's like taking local honey, but times 10 is what I like to say, because you're actually going straight to the source of your allergy.
Well, what do you do with it? You eat it? You put it in your
It,
drink?
put it in a smoothie, some yogurt, however you want to do it. But put it on cold foods. Because if you add it to something hot like tea or coffee, you can destroy a lot of the enzymes and a lot of the antioxidants and things that are in the pollen that help with that histamine response, that help with the allergies. And also it can destroy some of the vitamins in it too.
Where can people get your bee pollen and honey?
So I run a company called Stonehorse Apiary and Apothecary.
Okay.
We're at stonehorsehoney.com.
Nice.
And we are selling at farmers markets, events, going to all of the different things throughout the state. You can order online, or we're at a store in Suffolk called Organic Roots. Any one of those places you can pick up our products.
Okay, and also, if you want to learn more about the honeybee, you suggest one book, right? What do you got?
So I have a great book called The Beekeepers Bible. And I love this book because it's kind of like an all-around overview. It hits all of the points. You've got bee history, you've got biology, you've got even something for people that love to cook. They've got recipes, everything all about honey, about the honeybee. You name it, it's in the Beekeepers Bible. So I really enjoy that book, especially for people that don't necessarily want to be a beekeeper but are really fascinated by bees.
All right, well, you talk about beekeepers. Let's talk more about the Tidewater Beekeepers Association. How strong is the association? How many people are there? I mean, it's all degrees of beekeepers. You can have one hive, you can have multiple hives. But what do we need to know?
So we have beekeepers from all over the Tidewater area, and we've got about 100 strong. We trained about 30 new beekeepers this year. We have a great program. We have our own bee yard. So we do a monthly training, hands-on in bees, to train new beekeepers, to help you get into beekeeping, because we want beekeepers to be successful. And beekeeping is hard, especially now with all of the factors that are really stressing honeybees. We want to have people that are really educated and doing well with keeping their bees alive.
And how often do you meet, and what do people need to know?
We meet on the first Tuesday of every month, and we also have bee yard trainings the third Saturday of every month. You can check us out on tidewaterbeekeepers.net. We have our entire schedule there and all of the club events. We try to do social events and all different kinds of things. We just really love to hang out and talk about our bees.
That's awesome. Okay, so we have a few more minutes, and we can talk about things that people can do. We understand to plant pollinators. But before we talk about planting pollinators, it's critical that you're really careful what you spray. Pesticides, toxic chemicals, you name it. Think before you spray.
And one of the big things is you can buy sprays that say they're bee friendly, but if you're using multiple different products, you want to be careful about using them together. Something that's bee friendly with something else that's bee friendly may not end up being so bee friendly. So you really want to do your research and use products that are minimal. Vinegar works for weeds. You can use soapy water for insects. Companion planting, that's my favorite way to deal with pests. And just use those natural products as much as you can.
And also you mentioned things that you can plant. Certainly trees are a great way to go, flowering trees, but also your yards, your clover, your dandelions.
Absolutely.
Ligustrum are getting ready to bust out. Ligustrum are just bee friendly.
They're beautiful,
right?
Absolutely. And one of the things I love about a clover lawn is it's low maintenance, right? Clover doesn't grow that tall, so you don't have to cut it as often. I also love creeping thyme. It's beautiful. You have these gorgeous flowers across the lawn, and it stays about 6 inches or less. So if you really don't want to have to do a lot of maintenance, having that pollinator-friendly lawn can help you out there.
So once again, Christine, I'm going to show this footage we have. We're going to take you inside the hive, and you know the bee better than anybody. And I think it's important when you're a master, which is a big term for everything, but when you know a lot about something, when you see this footage, tell me what's going on in this hive right here. What are you seeing?
So right here we have a lot of bees at the entrance, guarding, coming back in, bringing in nectar. We've got bees here patrolling the comb, making sure that there aren't hive beetles or wax moths, making sure that there aren't pests. So you often have bees that are guarding the entrance to keep out invaders. You've got bees that are patrolling the comb to help keep out other pests and invaders. And then you have bees that are just doing their job. They're putting in the pollen, they're putting in that nectar, they're making honey, they're feeding the brood. They're doing all these different jobs. Honeybee society is amazing. And the thing that I love the most about it is that when you look at a honeybee, they never act for themselves. So Honeybee Society is amazing because it's always about the whole. What is good for the colony? And I think we as people could totally take a lesson from that.
Well, I tell you what, I've really appreciated you coming in on Life Outdoors and spreading some love for the honeybee and everything that you can to make our life and our environment a little bit better. If you like this edition of Life Outdoors, you're going to get more of anything that has to do with all that we have here in Hampton Roads. Christine, thank you so much for joining us here on Life Outdoors and Wavy Plus. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having us. We really always enjoy talking about the honeybee.
All right, we'll see you guys next time on Life Outdoors.